Hello, Amiga musicians. This is Photon of Scopex again, and I thought I'd introduce you to composing music using Protracker on Amiga. And for those coming from other music programs, a tracker is it's the beginning of purely computer-made music where you have absolute control over pretty much everything concerning your song, and it's a bit different from, say, the previous music programs where you plotted out notes on a sheet of music notepaper, or the later generation with something like a piano roll, if you know these self-playing pianos that used rolls with markings on them to play the notes. That's sort of what you have in Reason. For example, only the piano scroll is horizontal, so that the cursor would move rightward and pass over a bunch of notes that would trigger instruments. So anyway, let's start with the setup. If you downloaded the zip files from the music directory, this is what your entire project directory should look like. Only the music directory has been added. And let's check what we have inside there. You can do this in Workbench, which makes it even easier. You should create a directory or a drawer in Workbench called modules. You do that in CLI, which I'm using, by typing make dir modules. This is the home directory for your songs. They're in tracker terminology, they're called modules. In the beginning there were songs and there were presets and all kinds of things, but these days, when we're not having Amigas with 3 extra drives and swapping music disks, I should say instrument disks, like crazy, the usual way to work on your song is to save it as a module, which saves it both the song and the instrument samples with their volume settings, etc. So those are modules, and this is where you put your songs to find them later. This folder right here should be assigned to ST00. That's an assign. Assigns are used on Amiga to make a short name for this longer search path, and this is where this is how you tell Protracker where your home directory is for all kinds of stuff. In this directory then are 2 tracker versions, 2.3D and 3.15. These are reference Protracker versions for me and for many others, which means that whatever works in them works in your demo. You can also try 3.62 and even 4.0. But there may be some things that you don't like, or some bugs, or some layout issues, or whatever. For me, basically, 2.3D is what I use to check with if something doesn't work in 3.15. There are a few subtle differences in the, I think, the vibrato commands. Or maybe I'm confusing the difference between Protracker and Noise Tracker, I don't know. Either way, Protracker 2.3D is low resolution, which makes it a little more of a pain to work with. 3.15 is high res, and you can even get it interlaced if you have a deinterlacing display, which simply means that you have more. It's easier to work with the layout in it. This is the help file for Protracker, and this is a text file that you will see in a few seconds. Here, if you have used right-click and extract here, you would get all the instrument discs that came with sort of along the years, swapped between musicians and what have you, and also issued officially with some Protracker and Soundtracker versions. That's why it still has this ST abbreviation. That stands for Soundtracker, created by Karsten Nowaski. And of course, I don't know, stolen or developed further by various groups, until we had this Protracker, which is I think a solid foundation for memory efficient and raster time efficient music for use in demos and games. So if we look inside the STXX directory, you can see that I've removed almost all of the instrument discs, and that's because I think there will be enough instruments in these first 9 discs to do what I want. So I've made a script that assigns all these st-01 to its specific location on disks, which in my case is this directory /stxx/st01. And it's not really necessary to do it, but if you make a Protracker installation once and for all, and you want to have all the instrument discs, then you might as well do it. It saves some typing inside Protracker. So let's start Protracker. Here it is. First, a layout overview. Here's some general information. The length of your song. We're going to increase this to make some room for so-called patterns, which is what you use to build up your song. And if you press the Shift key or Alt key or Amiga key, it will play the pattern. If you press the Shift key, it will listen to key presses and record them as you press them. In this case, I pressed Q. The note keys are laid out like a piano, so that Q is C, key 2 is C sharp, key W is D, and so on. And in the lower octave you have Z as C2, S as C sharp 2, and so on. We'll get into the notes later. If I play this back using the Amiga key, which repeats the current pattern, I should say that all these keys, Shift, Alt, and Amiga, for playing, are the right-hand Amiga, Alt, and Shift keys. The left, Alt, Shift, and Control keys are used for some combinations that we'll go into later. As you can probably tell, you can hear no sound, and that's not, well, that's simply because I haven't loaded any instruments. If you look here, this is the current sample. Protracker has 31 samples that you can use, and you can extend this further by triggering a position into a sample, so that you can have up to 64K samples without using too much trouble. You can get larger samples by using some intelligent magic. And let's say that you have a sample that is pretty large, 30K, and it's a drum rhythm that you've, say, sampled from a drum machine, then you can trigger different percussive instruments by triggering that instrument and using an effect command, which is these last 3 digits, to jump into the sample at a specific point. That's I will not show that in these tutorials. I'm just saying that there are ways of getting more than 31 instruments in Protracker. And as you can see, the volume is 0, the length is 0, it's completely blanked out. This is the loop of the instrument, which means that you can sample, let's say, the very first part of a string instrument and set these values to make to loop the sound, to extend, to make the sound longer without making the sample take more space in memory. So it's simply a way to repeat a waveform in the sample. As you load a sample, which we will do later, these values will be filled in pretty automatically. And that's about it. Here are your navigation buttons. Instead of pressing right Alt key, you can press play. And instead of pressing space, as I did before without telling you, you can click stop. This repeats the pattern, so you can listen to a rhythm or something that you've made until it's good. And record is the same as the right shift key that I pressed before to record these notes. So this toggles the edit mode, which lets you edit the notes without playing the pattern. You can clear stuff, you can enter setup, and that's what we're going to do now. And this we will go into later to load our instruments. This is a disk operations. So I've prepared this setup, and your setup should be set the same way, and you should save it with this save config button. You can save multiple configs. You just number them and they end up in the s: directory. In the S directory at the root of your hard disk. So you can set various things. This is the default value for the tempo of your song, in case you shouldn't change it throughout the song. For example, if the whole song is a certain tempo, then, or if all your songs are the same tempo, then you can set the default value here. I recommend to always set the tempo at the start of the song, and I never use this. Timing should be set to CIA, and soft interrupts to off. This is all done with 512K chipmem and 512K fastmem. Just to show you that you don't need anything extra, though it does help to have some form of hard disk solution so that you can easily browse instruments. It's a bit of a pain with using floppy disks. You can customize your instrument to trigger visuals here. I'm not getting anything because the volume is set to 0 for this instrument that I've used. But these will show up later when you play a song. And the rest of the settings here should be set as you see on the screen. So go ahead and pause this video and make sure that your settings are the same way. I haven't changed a lot of them from their default values. And I won't go into what they do or anything. Okay, so presently we have an empty song with only one position. The length of the song is one position long. In each position you can tell it which pattern to use, so that at position 0 you tell it to use pattern 0, which is this number here. As you build your song, then you fill various patterns with this note data in 4 channels, right, left, left, right, in hard stereo separation. So this hard stereo separation could take a bit a while to get used to, but you soon learn to not put, for example, 2 treble instruments in the same left or right channel, and things like that. You learn to spread things out. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to clear the song first. Select all, just to remove all the samples, all the note data, and so on. And we're going to increase the length, let's say 4 patterns, to give us some breathing room. And you can go through the patterns like this. Currently all of them contain nothing, so you don't see the notes changing down here. But basically these are the 4 tracks that you're running down with time, that you place notes into using your loaded instruments. So let's go ahead and load some instruments. As you can see, some of my assigns appear automatically here. I have no idea what it goes by. To map these up, if you have 100 assigns on your mega galactic hard disk installation. But anyway, it gives me 8 assigns, which works fine for me. So right now the file window is empty. I will press redirectory, and I've prepared some sort of test module just to show you how you load a song. To get out of this disk operations window, press escape, then press Alt to play the song, and it will sound horrendous. So basically I've loaded, as you can see there may be some slight bugs. I wouldn't worry about them. Might be WinUAE, might be something else. This is an Amiga 500 setup in WinUAE. And either way, that should read bass drum too, and nothing else. And so this is sample 1, and it's a bass drum instrument. I hear it now because the cursor is in one of the note tracks. Here are the instrument number tracks, these 2 digits, and here these 3 are the effect commands then, the last 3. So if I were to, with the right arrow, move to one of the effect tracks and try to play a note, I wouldn't hear anything. So just press tab to make sure. And now I'm in the other speaker completely. This is the same speaker again, the left one, and here's the right one. Right, left, left, right. Okay. So that's what bass drum 2 sounds like. It's on one of these first discs. You can either use these arrows to toggle through the instruments, or control and the right and left arrow keys like this. This is my preference, because I can easily go through the instruments and check them out. Hang on. Managed to press tab and right arrow. That's not good. Here's the snare drum. Here's the tom. And if I press 1 octave lower down, here's a B drum too, which is a slightly different sound. And here's a reverbed bass drum. You have 3 octaves available to you in this Protracker version, and you toggle between high and low mode with F1 and F2. So this is the lowest octave for that sample. And this is the highest note for that sample, which is, let's see, that's actually 4 octaves. I think I liked. Let's see. Let's go from the bottom to the top. Nope, that's 3 octaves. So anyway, so that's how you load a song, and how to load an instrument is to move this check mark. You almost never use save song. Save song only saves the note data, which means it will have to jump all over the hard disk or over your external floppy drives searching for instruments, which is well, I don't know. Maybe it's not so painful. I haven't used it since forever. So move the check mark down to sample here, and you can see the path changed from STOO:modules to STO1. And of course you can click any of these here to see the instruments on the respective. So you can, for example, see, if we were to press Control right arrow to go to sample number 6 and click on one of these, it's it's dangerous. If you click on one of these and you have a previous instrument selected, it will load that instrument to that instrument slot. So that if you had a sample there before, and you have note data that you want to save, you simply must go find that original sound again. So make sure this is blank before you load a new instrument. Of course, since I am at a blank instrument position, I can try all kinds of sounds now. This is the bass drum 2 that we heard before. That was misspelled. And some lesser bass drums, in my opinion. There are all kinds of sounds here, sampled from various early 80s synthesizers. And some of these, if you're an Amiga fan of old, you will recognize almost all of them, I think. There are useful sounds and less useful sounds. This is kind of nice. One important setting to check that it's always off is the filter setting. If you copied my settings from the setup, the filter should be off. And this is mainly to not have the sound chip filter out high frequencies for you, but instead reveal how good the actual quality of the instrument is, so that people who play the song using the filter off, which is the standard setting and preferred setting, that they will not hear a junky sample. Well, I don't know. So anyway, I could go into all kinds of key presses that are useful. I think I showed you before, but let's show you how to turn off tracks. You do it like this. Well, nothing's happening in the lower half of the pattern because we don't have any note data in that part. So that's how that works. You can also turn them off with these visualizers up here. So, some more navigation that is useful. I'm doing all these key presses now in this tutorial to have for you as a reference to go back to, so I don't have to explain a lot of things along the way. As I said, Control right and left flips through your instruments. Alt right and left flips through your patterns. As you can see, only pattern 0, 0 is defined. I think you can go as far up as 63 and then it wraps, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Okay, so 63 is the highest pattern number. So normally you don't run out of patterns. And shift left and right moves you further in front or further back in your song position, and this is only relevant when pressing the Alt key to listen to a bigger part of the song than one pattern. So if I press the Alt key here, then of course it will play the whole song, which is one pattern long. But if we make the song 2 patterns long and press Alt, it will first play pattern 0, 0, and then if we, hang on, I want to show this. If we press Shift right arrow to go to position 1 in the song, and you increase this pattern number to pattern 4, say, whatever, what you do is you program your song this way so that you make a pattern. You may use it in several places in the song, and you take the pattern number and put the pattern number at a certain position. And that's how you make a sequence of patterns. I'm sorry. That forms the song. So, here we have used pattern 0 at position 0, and that's this pattern. And at position 1 we have pattern 4, and let's go ahead and press Alt right key to get to pattern 4. And as you can see, it's blank, but we could change that by going through our instruments with Control left and right arrow to find a tom sound, say, and just pepper that guy at the lowest possible note, for example. And then we go back to the first position in the song, and this is the pattern we know and hate. And the last half of that pattern is silence. Followed by our newly created pattern 4. So I hope you get how that works. Some more layout orientation, perhaps. Here are a number of panes that switch out this rectangle. Basically, they're all useless except the first 2. At least I've never used these. You can make chords from a string sound, say, and then you'd add the notes for the chord here, and the program would mix the waveforms together. You would have to cut it off at the end, and you'd have to loop it in some way to make it sound good. But usually you want a pre-sampled chord, for example C minor or I don't know, D major or something, because it loses some quality in this mixing. And some other guy can tell you about this. and these are blank. So these are the edit options. You can quantize notes, and you can make multi-edits and so on. We will not use that in these tutorials. This is, well, I think this is advanced stuff, and I'm not sure all that many use them. This, however, is very useful. Here's where you do your, let's say that you want to mix two samples, or you want to copy a sample and modify it. You want to boost a bass sound to make it sound more powerful. Things like that. You can, if you need, if you're very bothered about the numbering of the sounds and you want the numbering in a certain way, you can exchange samples and you can fade them, and it's very useful. We may get into this in these tutorials. In fact, I'm pretty sure we will, so stay tuned for that. Apart from that, you have these these note editing buttons here. I don't think I've ever used these. I've used the shortcut keys, which is the F3, F4, and F5 keys for cut, copy, and paste, combined with Shift for just one track, or Alt for all 4 tracks, so that we could, I can show you some function keys. For example, F6 goes to the top, F7 goes to the position 16, which is 1/4 down. F10 goes to the last note of the track. You get the idea. F6 through F10 navigates the track quickly without having to repeat the down arrow a bunch of times. So we could, for example, use the Alt keys to go to track 0. We could use Alt F4 to copy that into memory. The whole shebang, all 4 channels. Alt right arrow to go to position 1. I'm sorry, pattern 1. And press Alt F5 to paste all those notes. And then you can start modifying them to your heart's content. So that's used if you have similar sounding patterns, but you need a different ending note or whatever. So I rarely ever use these, but please go ahead and get acquainted with note editing using these, and you cycle through this track pattern and commands, which only cuts out these command settings here, which means that you can, for example, copy a track, transpose it, paste it into another pattern, and copy the effect commands that you use to make advanced echo things and stuff, echoes and fades and vibratos and what have you. You can copy this note, the entire effect command, the total effect commands, and paste them into the new pattern track. So that's the mode that you're using. Here's the block mode. You can mark a block, and I will tell you the last key combination for this tutorial, namely how to copy parts of a track. So what you do is, repeat after me, BXJ. So Control B, and the status change to mark block, and as you move your cursor, it will increase this, and the last note is included, so that if you want to copy the first quarter of a pattern, you stop at position 15 in the track. You press Control X, which cuts it out. If you want to put it back, you go to the top with F6, and you press Control J to insert it. As you can see, no notes were moved below this point, and these 3 control keys are what I use to basically copy parts of tracks around. I think there's Control I and all kinds of things, but you'll have to look to the help file for that, which I can't trigger, I think. No. because my Kira keyboard doesn't map the help key to the corresponding key in WinUAE. So anyway, you can find out the more advanced stuff, but Control BXJ does what you want in the case of cutting and pasting notes. So if I press Control J again, as you can see, I interlaced those notes in between the other ones. So it when you paste it, it only overwrites. Well, basically, it overwrites everything there is, but it only overwrites where there are notes, so that in between position 2 and position 6 there were no notes, and so this original data in between was kept. So that's how it's combined. So now basically we've modified pattern 1 so we can make the song longer, and we can insert at this position, we can insert pattern 1 by doing that, so that it now reads 0, 1, 4 in positions 0, 1, 2 of the song. The length is 4, which is wrong. It should be 3 because we haven't made any other patterns, but if we wanted, we could, for example, as we play the song, it will play pattern 0, 1, 4, and then perhaps pattern 1 again. So there you go. Now we have a 4-pattern song, and I mean, it will sound like crap, but just for pedagogical purposes, let's play the whole song. So here's pattern 0. Isn't it wonderful? So this is the one with the silent lower half, and why don't we go to this pattern and use our newfound command. Press F8 to go to the middle of the track, and press Control J again to paste the note data you copied before, and Control J again, and we've filled this track so that pattern 01 is not silent for the latter half of the track. So and don't be alarmed, our song will not sound like this when we're done. This is just to show you the basics of getting around Soundtracker. I'm sorry, Protracker. And here's our pattern 1 again. As you can see, I'm using a very slow speed, slow tempo in the song. We'll get into all the various commands for setting tempo and volume and stuff like that in the next tutorial. For now, I've shown you what you need to know to get around Protracker. Those of you who already know a little bit about Protracker will be able to skip this episode. When you're done, you can press disk operations, put the check mark next to the module. This will put you in stwo:/modules where your original module were. And if you'd like, you could rename this before saving it to not overwrite the original one if you want to keep it for some reason. There's no reason for us to keep it at this point because it sounds like crap anyway. So just go ahead and save it. It will ask you if you're sure, and then it will overwrite the module. And so far we're using 6 instruments, and the module in total, including the instruments and the note data, occupies 22 kilobytes. So that's all from me for now. See you in the next Protracker tutorial when we start to make some proper music. See ya!